Welcome everybody here to the SRI Performance Facebook page. I'm Blake Harris, joined by Zeta Performance himself, Andy May, and today we're going to learn about our great Draco racing springs, our preloaders, and how you can use it for your specific application to get around the racetrack. So Andy, we got ourselves a nice spring smasher here, our great Draco springs and some preloaders. How about you tell us a little bit about them and how they can use it back home or at the racetrack for their race car?
Well, let's start fundamentally and talk about what a preloader is. So we've got one of our preloaders installed here on a left rear shock. So what the preloader lets us do fundamentally is it allows us to, as we travel into the preloader, we can use a spring and it'll behave like a normal spring. It'll apply load on the shock. But what makes a preloader special is we can control what happens in compression independent of what happens in extension. So when we're in the preloader, it acts almost seamlessly and allows the spring to work as normal. But you can see as we extend it, this spring is now completely free, but all the spring load is held within the preloader itself. So what that allows us to do on a left rear, for example, is we can have effectively a large extended number. So when we come back and we compress our shock a little bit, we sit on our big soft spring. But when we go back to the throttle in a left rear application, we can generate this gap right here, and we have no spring load when we're all the way full throttle going down the straightaway. So this gives us the best of two worlds in this application, where we can have the spring load we need off throttle to keep a nice tight attitude, keep the left rear up in the air. But when we pick the throttle back up, we don't have all this spring load going through our left rear rods. So it makes it where the system's a whole lot more compliant and we can get more traction. So paired up with the right setup and shocks, we can run a preloader to get more rotation on entry and more forward drive coming off the corner.
And that's especially everything getting off the corner, because the straightaway speed means everything, but it also helps you back it down, maybe crack the throttle, and it'll actually help you rotate to get in the corner. So it's the best of both worlds, going in and coming off.
Absolutely. And it's not relegated to only left rears. We've also got these in all sorts of different lengths. So this right here is our 16-inch by 5-inch, which is set up to be run on modifieds using a 5-inch coil spring. We also offer these in a 10-inch by 3-inch, 12-inch, we've got a 14, a 16, this is our 16 modified, and then this is a really cool one that we've done. So this one here we call our 16-18, and so this one can be used with a 3-inch 16 spring, but it can also be used with our Draco exclusive 3.5-inch 18-inch tall spring. So this lets you use both stuff that you've already got in inventory, along with using other stuff that you may get specifically from us. So it's another way to be a little more flexible and have a few more options in your trailer all the time.
Say, whether you're going to a quarter mile like you'd go to Fairbury, or whether you're going up I-85 a little bit to width, we got you covered every spring, shape, and size.
Yep, and along with that, we sell all the necessary accessories to go with the preloaders. You always want to have a pair of these 3-inch coil over bearings on here, and you always want to make sure to get your preloader wrenches. These also double really good for some shock wrenches, but you want to be sure to use these guys so you don't damage these bodies, because these bodies are pretty sensitive.
So you got it here. So we've got our nice spring smasher as well. What are you exactly looking for on this while you're using the preloader?
So we're going to look at a couple different things. One of the most critical parts of the preloader is the timing. So it's really, really crucial that we're typically in most applications on the left rear looking for somewhere around 1/8 to 1/4 inch of gap at what we'd call our extended number when we're hanging all the way on the chain. And then we're going to look at our load. You know, typically we'll say normally you run 300 pounds of load extended. We're going to run back up into here, and we're going to go about 1/4 inch into it, and we're going to figure out what we want our extended load to be. So we'll be able to set our extended load, and our extended load we're going to set using our wrenches. And we've got our wrench, got one that'll go on the body, and one that'll go right here on the preloader, and that'll let us put load in the preloader. But we want to also do that independent of our timing. So that's going to set our load in the preloader. Then we're going to go all the way back up to our fully extended length. And when we get to our extended length, so we got it set right here at 23.5 for this car, we're going to set this guy, like I said, between 1/8 and 1/4 inch for most applications. And that's going to determine our timing. So that'll determine when we come in and out of the spring and also our load. And we just want to make sure, like always on these cars, make sure you got at least another 3/4 inch or so of extension on this shock from here, because if you top that shock out, you're going to have no traction at all.
Exactly. When it comes to timing is everything, whether it be in qualifying or when you get back on the throttle. How it goes through the center of the corner is basically how quick this meets up to here.
Yep, absolutely. And then, you know, we can sit there, we don't look at our bottom numbers or ride height numbers a whole lot, but we can change the stiffness of this spring, which is going to determine what our ride height number winds up being and how quickly it winds up picking up load. So you may wind up sometime putting down a softer spring like a 50 in there when you want a whole bunch of extended load for somewhere that you're just quickly breathing out of the throttle and you want all that load to hold the car up. And then somewhere where you got to stay out of the throttle for a little bit longer, we'll put a little bit more spring rate in there so that we can actually travel down into that spring, but the spring will hold the car up rather than just load. So we may run a 50 at a really, really fast, quick burp the throttle type track, and somewhere we're out of the throttle a little bit more, maybe we'll go up to a 75 or an 80.
So for all the different super late model drivers, they have their own brand of stuff that they like to do. For someone who's been in the industry for so long, what could be the deciding factor to say, hey, let's change it up, let's start using these preloaders in the Dracos?
Well, one of the big things that we pride ourselves on Draco is having the tightest manufacturing tolerance in the industry. So we hold all of our spring rates tighter than anybody else does. We take a little different approach on how we do some of our design, but you can see that when you see these big coil gaps and how much travel we can get out of our spring. We do that through using an ultra high tensile chrome silicon wire, which gives us one of the highest tensile strengths on the market, and it lets us take some other design liberties some of the others can't. We also manufacture our springs using a little different method. So all of our springs are manufactured in a process called lathe winding. So each one of these springs is going to have a super, super consistent, extremely repeatable ID, because this spring has actually been formed around a form, where a lot of the other brands are going to be CNC wound, where it's just a wire guide that doesn't fully support the spring. So we're able to be even more aggressive in our engineering because we can hold a tighter tolerance through the manufacturing process. And that lets us make super light, super accurate, high precision springs.
And also with that, of course, some springs out there, the rate might change to more where the spring gets. Us doing it this way actually helps us keep the exact rate you see when you purchase it throughout the spring's life.
Absolutely, throughout the spring's life and also throughout the spring's travel. One of the common downfalls when you get into barrel style designs is as you vary that pitch and you vary that diameter, it means as those coils start closing up, you'll actually see a non-linearity in the rate, and you may see the rate increase as it travels, or you may possibly even see it decrease a little bit, where we're going to have extraordinarily good linearity through the entire travel of the spring.
So there you have it, folks. Them are the preloaders and the springs, only available here at SRI Performance. Of course, this isn't the only thing you can get here for any type of applications, whether you're worried about springs or a nose, we got you covered. Of course, SRIperformance.com or 704-662-6982. And for more information, of course, you can get in touch with myself and Andy for any more questions.
Absolutely. Thank you, Blake.
Thank you, Andy.